Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Streech here. It's Thursday afternoon, May 22nd. We are aboard Nordhavn 71 number 3 CNET, and I'm joined by my colleagues from the office, and I'll let each person introduce themselves. Jim, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'm Jim Leishman, original co-founder with Dan of the company, going back approaching 50 years.
50 years.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Leishman. I'm a chief designer for Nordhavn. I've been with the company for 43 years.
And I'm Alex Ahman, engineer. Been here for about 6 years.
Hi, I'm Mike Teleria, engineering manager, and almost 20 years. I just in my, yeah, I've been here for quite a while. Started out writing technical manuals, and then electrical design, and now engineering manager.
This video started off as it was going to be a walkthrough video of the boat, but we've pretty much already done that already. Last fall I did a walkthrough video. It covered most of the details and engineering of the boat, but what it didn't cover was the people involved in how the boat came to be. Each individual has made a contribution. A lot of talent in our company, and so I know that people who follow Nordhavn, who have followed this boat, have a lot of curiosity about the design philosophy, just the background of how the boat came to be. So on Dreamers, I posted an invitation for people to submit questions that would spur us on for conversation here at the table. So that's what we're going to do today. Is talk about the boat, talk about the company, talk about the background of how the boat came to be. So I've got a list of questions here, and I'll read through them one by one. I'm going to read through and direct them to each of us here at the table to answer. And Jeff, I'm going to start with you. A question came through with the 68, which your beautiful design, thank you, and which so many people love that boat, and particularly with Dragon being so much in the news in the last couple of years, there are people who love the forward pilot house configuration on boats. And will we see a forward pilot house version of the 71?
Well, as of now, we don't have any plans for one, but I learned a long time ago, never say never to changes in a boat. So it's not likely anytime soon, but certainly if somebody had a strong interest, maybe more than one person, we would definitely consider it. It would require all new tooling, which is quite an undertaking.
Jeff, I'm going to stick with you on this next question. Can the 71 be delivered as a no flybridge boat? And as people who follow Nordhavn know, we've done 268s with no flybridge, and it's actually a beautiful version of that boat. Can we see that in the future of 71?
Yeah, for sure. We actually have a design right now for that with a 3D model. If anybody's interested, we could probably put it on the Dreamer Center on the website, but certainly that's no problem. It's very easy to do, actually.
Yeah, renderings look great. Just did a set for fun a while back, and lo and behold, they ended up being asked for. So
yeah,
it's a great looking boat, like they all are. I mean, the 63, we never put a flybridge on that, and that's what inspired the 68 buyers. They love the look of that 63. So yeah, definitely we'll see one in the future.
It's an interesting discussion because it offers certain things that are appealing. I mean, it certainly improves on stability, lowers the vertical center of gravity, but that's not to say that the standard boat with the flybridge, it meets all the criteria for category A. And but I think people probably have looked at that more as an aesthetic thing. They like the way it looks. Maybe they don't feel they've used flybridges in the past.
Definitely, like people that don't want a flybridge have had too much sun, or they're in higher latitudes, whatever it might be. There's a reason for it, and aesthetics is probably the major one.
Jim, I want to direct this question to you because you've been a big part of the of where we are at any given time over the last nearly 40 years that we've been doing Nordhavn's on where we are with engines, single, twin, wet exhaust, dry exhaust, and the 71 is presented and is only available as a twin engine wet exhaust boat. And for so many years we were proponents of single engine dry exhaust, and the gentleman who sent this question calls it the golden generation of the 60, 63, and 68, and you can actually go back to the 62 and 57 and so forth. So what are we thinking on this twin engine wet exhaust?
Well, the everything has changed so dramatically. I mean, the first engine that we selected for the Nordhavn 46, I mean, we wanted of course, all you could get was a mechanical injected engine, but we didn't want a turbocharger. Turbochargers are troublesome and you don't need them, and we wanted the most simple engine that you could find out there, and that was the John Deere based engine marinized by Lugger, and that worked perfectly with the dry exhaust and worked perfectly with the keel cooler. But as things have evolved into electronic injected engines and the ongoing demand for reduced emissions, everything has changed. You cannot, in the larger engine, you can't get a mechanical injected engine anymore. Everything is high speed or high pressure common rail or unit injected. And so it's we are still able to get some mechanical injected engines on the smaller boats, on the 41 and the 51. Those are Kubota based engines. It gets harder and harder with as the emissions demands are higher and higher. You can't even buy now a non-turbocharged engine. The engines are getting smaller in displacement, and they're all getting turbocharged. And now it's even hard to find an engine that's not aftercooled. So, and they're all electronic injected. You just can't. You got to change your thinking, but you just can't get those engines anymore. As we've evolved, and of course, the single engine dry exhaust keel cooler was, what we want, and we still do. A number of our boats, up through the 60, I think even the 76s we can do in single engine dry exhaust, but just getting more and more difficult. The engines are requiring dual circuit cooling, so if you not only have to have cooling water that will cool the engine jacket, but you have to have water that will cool the injected air. It's compressed by the turbocharger, it heats up, and then it has to be cooled before it goes into the engine. So you have dual circuit cooling, which requires a second keel cooler bigger than the standard keel cooler that cools the engine. So that, combined with the difficulty of the dry exhaust, the amount of space that it consumes, the dealing with the heat, and then a kind of a breakthrough or a recognition that we could achieve the same level of efficiency with the new boats, through improved drivetrain design, the way the propellers are positioned relative to the skags on the hull. And we found on the smaller boats we could achieve the same level of range and efficiency, and plus hull design, and Alex talked about that more with the computational fluid dynamics, and that's taken the place now of tank testing. But we've just have kind of evolved into now we're embracing. We're not suggesting that you shouldn't buy a 60 with a beautiful centerline single engine and keel cooler and dry exhaust. But there may come a time at some point where we just cannot do that anymore because of the configuration of the engines. So the twins, they have advantages. They'll you lose one engine, you can still proceed along your your route at virtually the same speed as you would with two engines. You just run one engine a little higher and you shut down the other. It gives you advantages of maneuverability. And there are advantages. On a smaller boat, it's just too difficult to go with the dry exhaust. Jeff can talk about that. It consumes so much prime real estate in the boat. So that's kind of where we're going. This is a twin engine boat, yep. And even our 41 is twin. The 51 is twins. We're working on some other designs, smaller boats. Actually, we'll probably talk about a 46 that's going to be twins. So
I think that you mentioned on the exhaust. The exhaust is very limiting to what you can do on an interior and an exterior profile. So when I start a boat, I'm not really thinking dry exhaust, wet exhaust. I'm looking at a pretty looking boat, and then then the question comes, where are we going to put the exhaust? And it's always, well, yeah,
I
I
think
got to
that-
change it, and it won't maybe not look so good. So
The designs have evolved a little bit from quite commercial looking
Yeah.
to more, more elegant. And we've found that the market, they want to have a boat that can run 3,000 miles and can handle any kind of weather, but they want something that a little more contemporary in styling.
yeah,
And then there is the subject of draft. So we committed to twins on the 86, 96, the 120 a long time ago, simply because as singles those would have had a draft of, I don't know, like 9 feet or something. Or,
And plus, you just
Yeah,
have to
but-
have like a locomotive engine to drive the thing on the center
I
line.
think the 68 draws it's over 7 feet. This split, I think, we're at 6'8". That makes a difference in the Bahamas or somewhere where you can go. You
Now,
wouldn't
these-
think 6
these-
inches
These
would make that much
twins are
difference.
all designed with, if you run the boat aground on a relatively level seabed, you're going to hit the keel first. You're not going to hit the propellers. You're not going to hit the fin blades. You're not going to hit the rudders. That's absolutely something we would never compromise on.
I mean, a big sport fisher or something.
Oh yeah, the first thing it hits is your prop tips, and you're just done.
Yeah.
You've got an expensive repair bill, and it may damage the shafts and everything else. So we're still stay true to that protection of the running gear and the rudders, but it's working out very, very well for us on even the smaller boats.
The engine rooms stay cooler.
Well, yes, too. And plus, you're walking in between the engines on the center line. So even on the little 41, you've got over 5 feet of headroom in there.
With there were a series of questions. I'm going to combine them all together, and it's you are the designer of the power management system, the DC electrical, AC electrical, batteries, inverters, battery chargers, shore power, and so forth. And what was your philosophy? What is our philosophy as we present this boat? How well can we run on batteries? Where are we on lithium? Could you please discuss that? And
Sure. Yeah. No. Thank you. Yeah. No. Plenty to chew on there. I think from a philosophy point of view, Nordhavn, I don't know, just not even from power management, but the overriding philosophy, as I understand, it's always been just keep things as simple as possible for an owner operator to run, to fix, to understand, without having to have an advanced degree or something like that, or having to call for help all the time. So we try to stay true to that as much as possible, and it's an ongoing challenge, but it's a fun challenge. And even as things get more complicated, technically, the ability to use them doesn't necessarily get more complicated. In some cases, it kind of gets easier because there's this layer of unseen technology that you interface with that makes things nice. But I think if I were to try and characterize our power management philosophy, I would say it's optimized flexibility. And the best way to try and understand that might be with like the 71 we're on right now has 60 kilowatt hours of batteries, 10 kilowatts of alternator power, a 38 kilowatt generator, a 20 kilowatt generator, and 12 kilowatts of shore power, or 24 if you have 2 shore power inlets, and 16 kilowatts of inverter power. So you have all of these options and all of these ways of using power to meet the demand, whatever it is at the time. So if you're just on an underway and it's just a few people and it's not that hot, you can easily get by without running a generator. You have 10 kilowatts of alternators sitting there powering everything. You have a 16 kilowatt inverter, so it's like having a generator there without running a generator, and that's usually enough. And if the load is more than the alternators can handle, the batteries can fill in and help out, until you get to more than 16. And then if you're there, then you turn on a generator, and you can start with a smaller one. And if that's not enough, you can turn on the bigger generator. And if that's still not enough, you can turn on 2 generators and split the load. And so it's there's load management involved, but even the owner of this boat, we've had several kind of interactions in not official trainings, but pretty quickly he found himself able to intuitively understand how to run the boat. And he's like, oh, I get it. All I have to do is understand how much the need is, and I can watch my little need meter. And as soon as it gets to this level, I got to shift to this other higher capacity power supply, and that works really good. To directly answer the battery boat question, a battery boat's basically a boat that can run off of batteries and alternators, no generator required.
Not for propulsion, but for just running everything on the boat, but propulsion.
Just like overnight loads.
Right. Oh, like anchoring.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too. So both. Yeah. Whether you're underway without a generator or at anchor without a generator, battery boat concept. Obviously, if you're at anchor, you're not running your alternators. But what's interesting to me is when I started here, almost 20 years ago, Jesus, we were the 55 and the 60. Those are solid battery boats. You could run that boat with the alternators, and you wouldn't really need a generator unless you're running air conditioning. And now we're on a 70-foot boat, and you can kind of do the same thing, mostly because the electrical demand has gone down quite a bit on lighting, all the LED lighting. Lighting's actually a pretty big consumer on boats. Air conditioning has gone down substantially. I think, don't quote me on this, but almost possibly as much as 50%, the amount of electricity required to run air conditioning, which has always been one of the highest consumers on the boat. So now we're up into a 70-foot battery boat, which was never the case before. This boat would have required a generator to run all the time just to kind of keep up with that ambient load. So those are all working in our favor. And then if you add the whole lithium battery and layer that on, which this boat actually has, is lithium batteries, you can think of that as doubling, tripling, or even some cases just quadrupling the amount of stored energy on the boat. And you can do a lot with that. It's obviously at anchor, you're just going to last a lot longer. You can go easily overnight, maybe a night, a day, and another night, just on the batteries while running air conditioning. And maybe somewhat limited air conditioning, just because the inverters can only make so much AC electricity. But another place where some owners anecdotally have kind of been pleasantly surprised is underway, they're able to use the alternators to power the boat, and then if they can't keep up, the batteries backfill, and since you have this huge battery bank of stored energy, it'll just keep helping out for weeks at a time before you need to run the generator. And so people can go all the way to Hawaii, on a hot time of year without running the generator and completely cool down the boat. So those are all kind of things that when people say lithium batteries are game changers, that's kind of what I think they mean, is you're able to minimize and even some cases almost eliminate generator dependency for normal style cruising. Of course, the generator is necessary when you're cooking food, making water, you've got to cool the whole boat down, you've got a big party or something like that. You're always going to need a generator on a boat like this. But there are arguments for smaller generators, things like that.
Yeah, so you mentioned lithium, and despite the philosophy of the 71 being an all-inclusive boat, water makers, ground tackle, hydraulics, stabilizers, or we actually haven't gone standard with lithium. We are going to, we can talk about the M46. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so there's a model that we're working on right now, a 46-foot boat, and it is standard.
Which is sort of being revealed right now in this video. So
there it is.
Yeah.
Certainly we've talked about going standard with lithium for quite a while, and it wasn't a case of if but when, and when has arrived. I think what's really driving that is the cost of lithium has really come down. It used to be several times more expensive than owners would have to pay for the regular set of batteries. Now it's only like 2 or 3 times as much, for much more power that will last much longer. And and I could go on about the benefits of lithium for a long time, but I think everyone kind of gets the basics. Is you can just put a lot more. You can put a lot more energy in a much smaller space, and it doesn't cost that much more. But one thing interesting I think a lot of people don't think about with lithium that I like is the amount of protection that comes included with the lithium system is really robust. Every single cell within a battery has to be monitored for voltage and temperature 24/7, all day, all night. So all of this sophisticated layering of monitoring is built into these batteries, which doesn't exist in typical lead acid batteries. And partly for safety. Obviously there's worries about lithium and it's a lot of energy in a small space. So if that gets out of control, it's a problem. More so just that it's protecting the investment, because if the lithium voltage gets too high or too low, it can ruin the product, not so much as making it unsafe as ruining the investment, and you got to throw the thing away because it's been allowed to discharge too deeply. So we're now protected from things that happen all the time on regular boats with AGM batteries. You're never going to kill the batteries. They're going to turn themselves off and self-protect, which is, I can't point that out enough, is a really big deal. Because that's the kind of thing that probably happens on every other boat that we built. Is at some point the breaker's gonna trip at the dock and the batteries are gonna die, and they may not come back that well. So they're really very well protected, and that's a nice thing that comes along with lithium.
Seems like you could say that lithium is going to do to lead acid batteries what LED lighting did to incandescent lights. You don't see any, you don't see halogen lights or incandescent lights in boats anymore or anywhere. So it's just, we didn't want to be the very first guys to go out there and be the pioneers that had, the problems. There has been some problems in the past with them, but I think it's now to the point where they're regarded by virtually everybody as being safe.
So, Mike, following up on a lot of good conversation about electrical, thank you for that. And lithium, I think a lot of people probably, are a little squeamish about lithium. You see the Teslas on fire and Boeing Dreamliner and I don't know, your iPod or whatever. We've had a perfect safety record to my knowledge on this, and what is our philosophy on that? Why?
Our philosophy is pretty much where the industry is going, the recreational boating industry, and a lot of the automotive industry is the perception of lithium things catching fire, the hoverboards and the laptops, and I think back then to Boeing, they tried one on one of those, and that was kind of in the early days of lithium technology. And without getting deep into it, there's lots of different lithium chemistries. There's lithium cobalt oxide and manganese oxide and lithium iron phosphate, which is what we use on these boats. And all of these have different energy densities to them, and the more volatile, the more energy you can kind of cram in a small space. And the ones that boats use are actually not that energy dense compared to the other lithium technologies. So they're not near as volatile, and they don't require such thick like metal cases and things like that, and that's why they're the ones that are super strongly recommended for use on boats. All the research I've done has pointed to these being super safe. All of the testing that's been done, the UL testing, the first battery manufacturer we used did extensive testing, punctured them, burnt them, exploded them, everything they could do to hurt these batteries and keep them contained. And since then, the level of safety has really grown quite quickly. It used to be the first question people would ask is, how can you guarantee these are safe? Do I need to put in like a metal plate under these in case they melt down and everything? And people haven't asked that question in 2 or 3 years. We built 25 boats with lithium batteries now, and now we're kind of at the point where we feel kind of pretty far along that learning curve, and now we're looking to kind of optimize what we can bring to the people who buy the boats in terms of pricing and capacity and performance, and and I think that's just one of those areas that's going to continue to mature quickly. And there's new technologies coming out that's not even lithium. There's other chemistries being researched. So I think it's only going to get better for us in terms of how much energy we can store on a boat versus how much we have to make, using fossil fuels and things like that. But the safety question for now has been very well answered. The last 2 times I've been to IBEX, the big show in Tampa every year, I can't remember the safety thing coming up in a dangerous way other than, we're using this proven technology, and that's what we use, and no problem. It's good. Yeah.
Alex, I want to bring you on deck here now with a couple of questions. You were very much involved in the structure design of the 71, the bulb development, stability issues, getting us certified as category A in the RCD design category. Tell us about your experiences with the 71 and what you did.
Well, there's a lot going into this boat that's really started with all the latest generation of Nordhavns, the 41, 51, the new 46 that's just been revealed now. So to start, we did a full round, beginning of the design process of computational fluid dynamics, did a lot of computer analysis of the bulb, which I'll go into in detail later. And we were able to really fine tune it, and deliver a 7.5% reduction in overall resistance on the boat, which could be higher, but I'll talk about why we decided to make the bulb like it is. We felt that was the best way to go. Also, structurally, we're using a lot more advanced fabrics than in the past. A bunch of the old models, they use chop strand mat woven roving, which is woven layers of fabric together, so the fabric's not actually going in straight lines. Now we're using knitted fabrics. We're using biaxial fabric, double bias fabric, unidirectional fabric, so all the fiberglass is really in a straight line, much stronger, and that lets you make a lighter boat, thinner boat, stronger boat overall. And we're also using cord topsides, which is has been controversial, but I think it's proven to be just as tough as the other boats in practice. Lets us make the boat a lot lighter above the water line, and we always start the cord well above the water line, so you don't have to worry about running into logs or anything. That reduction in weight above the topsides makes the center of gravity lower, which allows you to put less lead on the boat, which again makes the boat lighter, so you're really seeing a big benefit there.
Yeah, so the development of the bulb, tell us why we didn't, I mean, over the years I think we know that more bulb is better, but there are limits.
Yeah, so this boat in particular, the anchor's mounted right at the bow, and it's got a pretty vertical stem compared to some of the older models, and we're really limited by that in terms of bulb length. You obviously don't want to drop your anchor straight through the bulb, make a hole in the boat, or at least scratch your bottom paint. So yes, we could have gotten a little bit more of a benefit with a longer bulb, but then we'd have to move the anchor, and that starts getting really involved, complicated. It's a different solution for bigger boats. And the other factor there is really if the bulb leaves the water, and this is a relatively small boat for a boat with a bulbous bow, if the bulb leaves the water, which is bound to happen on a relatively smaller boat, it's going to slam when it re-enters the water. So we went with a more elliptical shape, so it would reduce the slamming a lot and just make the boat more comfortable for everybody on board.
You know, on these scantlings, I'm always surprised how you guys are just laboring over these stringers and how they intersect and how they can't be broken and just all the science that goes into that. And I mean, Jeff, you could speak to this. Back in the day, let's put some little stringers down here like this and put a little more glass in there and it'll be fine. You beat on it, steam strong.
Of course, it was fun.
It was fun, but it was probably way heavier than it needed to be, and it really maybe wasn't as strong as you think. I mean, the amount of effort that goes into just the geometry of these stringers. I mean, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. I'm astounded at how much work you've got to put into that stuff.
Oh yeah. So we're not just designing a boat that won't break. We're designing a boat that we can actually take to the the European Union's notified bodies and present the scantling design to them, and they'll say, okay, this passes the rules. In this case, it's ISO 12215, and there are a lot of rules involved with that, making sure that everything's built properly and to the highest standard. So it really takes a lot of effort to get something that works properly and that they'll accept. And the rules have guidelines for how thick, heavy, how strong everything needs to be, how stiff everything needs to be. It also has guidelines for things you are and you are not allowed to do. As was mentioned, you can't have breaks and stringers. You have to have a continuous stringer. If you don't have a continuous stringer, you have to account for it not being continuous. It's really detailed. It goes on, and yeah, it takes a lot of time, but it does result in a really strong boat, really well built, well designed boat.
And in most cases, we're not just building exactly to that standard.
Oh, yeah.
We have a safety factor. You can talk about that. Not everywhere, but I think we would
Well,
try.
there's a kind of a
Yeah.
mandate that we talked about, and we wanted a certain percentage
Yeah.
above the basic.
Yeah, so generally we'll aim for 10% above category A, and the reason I'd hesitate to go higher is because once you start doing that, you start impacting the stability of the boat, you start making everything heavier. So 10% above the rule is a good guideline. Make a fairly bulletproof boat, and it is bulletproof to an extent, literally.
Yeah, we actually fired
Oh yeah.
some pretty.
And
I don't know what you were. Is that a 45?
45 full metal jacket into the top side, or not the top sides of a 71. That would be expensive. Into sample the yard sent us, didn't go through.
A lot of people don't they get confused. You refer to top sides. The top sides you're talking about are the top sides of the hull. not-
Yes, so the
not
top sides are anything above the design waterline, basically. And then as far as the superstructure and everything, that's the superstructure, not the top sides. So,
And so a lot of these boats are built with separate laminated panels that are the exact laminate schedule and as the structure, and they're being done alongside the boat as it's being laminated.
yeah,
For
so
testing.
Yeah, and so those are the panels that you have played with and shot at.
yeah, and I believe that one panel still exists in the office somewhere.
And those panels, if you're getting a certified boat, those have to be sent in for analysis.
Yeah, so the way that works is if you want to use exactly the material properties of that laminate, you can actually have the sample sent in and tested. We don't do that because our goal is to build a little bit over what the rules require.
We have done it though with ABS.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and that's
Send those panels in.
yeah, that's a process, especially for the
120.
bigger boats. CE, it's not a requirement, so we don't do that because all that will do is let us use less material. We already want to build over the rule. So in reality, we could be about 15% over in certain areas, and that's not the whole boat. That's just, I'd say the average. Is the way the rule is detailed, you're really analyzing and testing nearly every single part of the boat, making sure it all complies. So rate over the rule might be 5% in one area, 25% in another, so on and so forth. Real.
It's so nothing is left to chance. In fact,
No.
the boats. If you buy a Nordhavn, very early boats, we did use metal tanks, and there's always a concern on a 25, 30-year-old boat with metal tanks. But very early on, we started going to fiberglass tanks. The testing, I know one of the things we've had to do that has really given us heartburn is the burn testing of our fuel tanks. And those fuel tanks have proven to be one of the best things we've ever done. It's amazing to me that anybody is still building a boat with a metal tank in it, because they do not last the lifespan of the boat, where our fiberglass tanks are as good 30 years into the boat's life as they are in the beginning. But there's a lot of effort that goes into those tanks in terms of the bulkhead placement, the baffles, and then the burn testing. And maybe you can go into that a little bit.
I think that pretty much covers for a CE boat, and even if you don't get a CE boat, you're benefiting from the CE design of the tanks and the testing. So all the tanks are fire tested to ensure at least a minimum compliance, usually over that. They're also pressure tested based on what kind of pressure the tank is expected to see. There's a margin well over that where they have to fill the tank with air, and it's expected to pass with no permanent deformation. So,
But fire testing is more than
Yeah.
you would think. You have to build a tank. You're not just testing a panel that you built the tank like. So these days it's hard to find a facility that can take
Set
a
a whole tank
thing
on
like
fire,
that.
yeah.
We had to go to
did-
Europe.
We had to go to Europe at a great expense, and we looked all over. There was one guy in Europe that could do it. I don't know how,
But
but
Ireland, I think, yeah.
We
the
did
shipper-
it
Yeah.
ourselves at the factory years ago, and damn near burned the factory, didn't
yeah, I saw the videos. It was
yeah,
something.
so I don't know, a lot of builders that maybe that's one of their hesitations to go to fiberglass tanks.
Yeah,
I
well,
love our tanks.
Do the tests.
I think the point is that if you see the amount of expertise that goes into to every aspect of the design, all the structure, the tankage, I mean, it's just endless detail, even individual components to go into the boat, so that we can, when we do have to CE class a boat, we can pass all this stuff, and it really is gives you a lot of confidence to see that effort and what's being done to ensure that boat's going to be safe and going to be suitable for all the conditions that you're likely to encounter.
Alex, I want to continue with you on the stability testing that we do. I know that the CE boats have an empirical. I mean, we do it with the computers, but we actually get out with moment arms and weights and inclinometers and so forth.
Yeah.
Could you describe that process?
Well, so this is a process that's been done since the dawn of modern naval architecture, called an incline experiment, incline test. What you do, based on the shape of the hull, where the longitudinal center of gravity is, fore and aft, transverse center of gravity because of the way the boat's sitting in the water. The one thing you're missing that you need to have for the stability calculations is the vertical center of gravity. So the incline experiment is how you figure that out. Basically, you just put a lot of weight on one side of the boat, a known weight, and you measure the angle it heels. Repeat that again several times, different sides of the boat, and make sure your results are actually right. And from that, you can just mathematically determine the vertical center of gravity. So that's done on all the models. We did that on this model in Taiwan a couple years ago. And so after that, we have all our spreadsheets. We put it into to comply with ISO rules. In this case, for this boat and most of the Nordhavn's category A, which I'll explain a little bit later. So this boat actually came out probably one of the highest pass margins of any Nordhavn model. And I've actually discovered it even passes with the hot tub full. I wouldn't recommend running it with the hot tub full, but you could. And there's a safety built in there too. If the boat heels over enough, the water's not going to be in there.
Describe that a little more. I mean, it's a real thorough process. I mean, they have to calculate the surface area of the profile of the boat and calculate how it would heel with wind, and then a sea comes underneath it and it rolls the boat a certain amount, and then you have to calculate all your down flooding points, and it's just so. And then you have to do this not only in a full load displacement. When you're, so explain that full load and arrival and departure condition. And
yeah, so I'll start. I probably should explain about the RCD Recreational Craft Directive design categories first, because that's very relevant to all of this. So for category A, you're basically designing a boat for a certain Beaufort scale and wave height, and once you actually do the incline experiment, you know where your vertical center of gravity is, you start going through this horrible involved rule, ISO 12217, and you start by adding basically everything you'd expect to be on the boat while it's running, very realistic cases. And there are several load cases. Really what we're most concerned about is resistance to wind and waves for a boat like this. That's generally the most challenging one. And for that, the worst test to go through is just worst case empty boat with the minimum of what it needs to run, just 2 crew, nearly empty tanks. And then
really high in the water.
Really high in the water.
Freeboard.
So
that vertical center of gravity.
Yeah, vertical center of gravity goes up with the boat.
Windage goes up.
Yeah, you have empty fuel tanks, so there's nothing below the water line, just holding the boat down. And so boat high in the water like that, you get more wind pushing on the boat out of the water, and we have to run it through a test where blowing up just over 60 miles an hour of wind. We calculate how much that boat's going to heel, and we also look at what happens when a wave hits the boat. So yeah, as I said, this one actually came out very well very well in the rule. As far as other things we'll look at, go through the whole thing, offset load test, where everything on the boat, that is expected to moves to one side. See how far the boat heels. There's a maximum angle to pass that one. There's there's down flooding points. So when the boat heels over to a certain point, it's going to start flooding down the engine room ventilation, lazarette ventilation are usually the two worst ones. So there's actually a maximum angle for that, and a minimum angle for that. I mean, really, you're just going through and testing for every eventuality and making sure that you pass the minimum requirement of the rule.
It's kind of like, it's a weird thing. It's like you're designing a boat to survive basically empty, which it'll never be. You're never going to be in the middle of the ocean with your tanks empty unless you really did something wrong. And in the worst weather imaginable, which again you should be able to avoid because you have satellite and everything. So you're designing this boat to really survive an extreme worst case condition, which the likelihood of the boat ever seeing anything like that is really, really minimal. So you benefit from having a super stable situation all of the time where you do have fuel in the tanks and you're not in horrible weather, and so it's really, really designed to meet a very, very horrible condition that recreational boat owners are going to do everything they can to avoid at all costs, and they do.
Just the application of basic seamanship will more or less keep you safe, and really the limitation of this rule is it doesn't account for hurricanes, it doesn't account for asteroid strikes, tornadoes, anything like that.
It used to be the Category A used to make reference to unlimited offshore, and I think they toned that down a little bit. I don't think they use the word unlimited.
Yeah, so they got rid of that in 2013, became active in 2017 because they felt it was really misleading. It was making people think, oh, this boat's an ocean boat, this is the best you can get. Well, no, not necessarily. You might be able to get a Category B or C or even D boat that's better for your intended use. The reason they got rid of that, they just wanted to make it more clear. Now, of course, it's more difficult to understand, but at the same time, it's a little bit more clear with what the intentions of the rule are.
But it applies to every aspect of the boat. Like right now, we're looking at a huge window there on the side of this boat. And this qualifies for Category A in every respect. And yet that window, this boat has to be able to get tossed down on its side, slam down that window, and that window can't break. In the old days, we had much smaller windows. We put storm plates over them just in anticipation of it. But now, with the sophisticated glass and the way they're built, we're told and assured that there's no storm plate required. And I know that's not your area of expertise. Phil Arnold, who is our other engineer, or senior engineer, you mentioned earlier that he's responsible for that. But I understand there's a huge testing process for those windows for impact, and the window can shatter, but it can't cave in. It has to remain watertight. So there's
rules for the amount of sealant, the width of the sealant. They didn't leave anything out.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, one of the questions that we haven't gotten to yet is talking about succession plan and the younger generation and so forth. So we just got we got two VIPs already at the table. We got two more VIPs that just walked in. Eric Leishman here has sold 2 out of the 5 Nordhavn 71s that have been sold, and has the most sea time from in the company on a 71, having taken hull number 2 down to Mexico a few months ago. And then we have Trevor Smith, senior project manager, who is the project manager on the big boats, on the 86, 96, and the 120, which many of you will remember. And our project manager team, we have 5 project managers. Each model has a project manager. They're the quarterbacks of how a boat goes from order to completion, and the salespeople and the project managers work together to.
Might point out too that Trevor, I think you're sliding to 50 or just about
49. I'll be 50 this year.
You've worked here since you were a teenager.
Pretty much, yeah.
So the experience level that we have, at this table, and then the other project managers all up in the office, we're really, really proud of the depth of knowledge and the expertise that we have that goes into every one of these boats. And I've got pictures of Eric when he was 3 years old driving a Nordhavn 46 and docking it and backing it out of the slip and everything. So I don't know, Eric, we're talking about the 71 here, but we're talking about all the boats.
Yeah.
And you've run this boat a lot now and have developed opinions on it in terms of its handling and its noise level and its performance and stuff. Can you give us a...
Yeah, I was blown away. I run a lot of these boats, from the very smallest 41, spent a month on it, almost a month in the Bahamas with my wife and kids, and all the way up to the 80s, 86s, 96, and was surprised. I ran this boat from Ensenada down to the Sea of Cortez, which is roughly 800, 900 miles. And this boat, to me, operates like a smaller boat would. The systems, the ease of operating the boat, but it feels like one of the much bigger boats, the 96s or so, where the comfort level, the noise levels are real low, and just the seakeeping ability of the boat is amazing. It feels like you're on a much bigger boat than a 71, but coming into close quarters, the boat's easily maneuvered and handled and understood. The systems are simple enough for an average couple to get on the thing, and after a little bit of learning, they can be totally competent in this boat after a couple days of poking around.
I think Trevor has been the project manager of our largest boats, including the 120. Actually, is currently working with Jeff on a 100-foot boat and even a 130-foot boat for European construction. Trevor knows more about this yard, and although you're not project managing a boat out of Dashing at this moment, but since you were a kid, virtually you've been in this yard and know all the people. And Trevor knows the systems, the big yacht systems, and I think this boat's got a lot of big yacht systems in it.
It definitely does. Yeah, I mean, this is basically just a mini 96 is the way I think of it, more than a big small boat. I mean, it's got tons of volume, and the volume in this boat, probably is, for the size, is more than anything else we build. I mean, it's just incredible. And I've done a couple sea trials on it, and like Eric said, the sound levels, how smooth it is, everything is just amazing. I mean, it's an incredible boat.
You talk about, we have evolved from a certain type of propeller configuration with skags in our propeller apertures, and we've evolved into a newer system which takes the props and moves them way back from the from the dead wood or the keel, and we're getting much better water flow into the props. We've increased the efficiency, and you went through that whole process on the 96.
Yeah, the 96 was the first to get it. It was 9611, and it's basically just a Y strut. And prior to that, on the 86, the boat was pretty good, and all the way through 80% throttle, probably something like that. And that last 20%, you get quite a bit of vibration and noise aft. They can basically all that cavitation. And once we put the Y strut on, you could go full throttle on the 96, and there's virtually no cavitation, nothing, and it's just incredible. And I think the efficiency gained as well
provides a huge additional amount of strength for a grounding accident too.
Oh, for sure.
So that this boat was designed from the get-go with that, and you pretty much were involved in the design of the skags and how long they would be and how that was configured. Do you have recollection of that, or what?
Yeah, really the goal is just to get the propellers into clean water, which I think we've done well here. And the cleaner the water flow, generally the more efficient your prop is going to be. You also want enough tip clearance so that it's not interacting too much with the boat itself, anything else around. So we go for about 15% tip clearance, ideally, maybe 12.5, but 10 absolute minimum. So really the goal is to just keep the propeller clean, and keep water flowing through there cleanly. And
I think moving it back from that deadwood though gives us a lot better results than than even reducing tip clearance.
Yeah, and it's also worth knowing the skags on this boat, as with all the boats. They are designed with grounding in mind, so they should be able to support the weight of the whole boat, just structurally.
Even the back of that rudder shoe, rather than compressing the rudder up into the hull itself, the strength of that with the Y strut is almost incalculable. It's just gigantic.
Yeah, so ideally, the best thing to do would be no skags, nothing, just a propeller just floating out there in the open. But realistically, eventually that's going to break. So this is a good solution to stop that from happening.
Well, we are doing that. We are doing boats without skags, but again, the propeller is well above the bottom of the keel, and as are the fins and the propellers. So, but yeah, there's this trade-off between maximum protection and efficiency, and it can be pretty shocking how big a penalty you have to pay to get the highest level of protection.
Oh yeah, I believe it's 3.5% for my CFD studies on the 51. But that also relates to the bulb, like we talked about earlier. Everything's a compromise, and the whole thing is just the art of designing the best possible compromise, the best possible solution, just between all the factors you have to balance: weight, cost, speed, efficiency, stability,
Looks.
and looks.
Jeff, I'm going to direct this to you. The 71 has it's a long waterline boat. It's apparent just when you look at the profile of it. I think it's 4 feet longer than the 68.
Yeah.
And what was your thinking on that? Is that a styling thing or a naval architecture thing, or what's the background of that?
I guess it starts with a styling thing, but it definitely a longer water line, is usually a benefit. So I think generally this boat you could consider to be more contemporary than anything we've done in the past, and that's part of that aesthetic is closer to a plumb bow, but not quite plumb.
And we've got that spreadsheet that any viewers who want it, we'll send it out. We've got that spreadsheet of the fuel burn runs that we did.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Very efficient hull.
So one of the things that has helped us a lot over the years is that we run our own boats. We've spent a lot of time on our boats. Jim, I can remember way back in the Stone Age, you crossed the Atlantic on early days of that 46.
Jeff and I almost got ourselves killed taking the first 46 up in the winter.
Oh yeah, that was
Came out of San Francisco, full storm conditions.
Yeah.
I don't know what we were thinking.
hole number one.
Well, we were thinking this is a Nordhavn, it can handle anything.
And it did.
It did.
Yeah. And then you crossed the Atlantic on Jim Sink's boat.
Yeah, that was the first major ocean crossing.
You've been around Cape Horn twice.
Yeah.
Well, that Atlantic crossing with Sinks ended in a Pacific crossing back to Dana Point in a circumnavigation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Final came into Dana Point.
And so I've run some boats up and down the coast. We took our 40 around the world in 2001, 2002 with a number of people from the company. That boat never cooled down. It would arrive and the next group would get on it, and we took it around the world in 27 weeks, I believe it was.
It set a world record for the fastest production power boat to circumnavigate, which has never been
And that then led pretty much into the 43, as I remember, which you learned on that. And now talking about the younger generation and so forth, Eric, you've spent a lot of time moving boats around.
I have, yeah. I try to make a point to get on every boat I'm connected with, and make a run up the coast or down the coast in the Sea Cortez or wherever the location of the boat is.
And that helps the owner, and then that feeds back.
It's good. It gets the owner away from the dock and understand the systems, the water makers, all the, just running the boat is a lot better than sitting at the dock trying to give instruction on how to work the system. So
you just learn so much. I mean, Jeff and I bought the 120 back from Hong Kong or from Xiamen, and went up across over the top of the Aleutian Islands, spent 3 weeks, 21 days with the longest leg at sea from Hong Kong to the Aleutian.
Mike was with us.
Yeah, Mike was there. And that's right.
And that's a great video, by the way, which still active on YouTube. That's a fabulous. I watch it from time to time. Just some of the
So
antics.
our most successful salespeople are the ones that run the boats the most, know the boats, and most all of them take advantage of every opportunity to get on a new boat with the owner for the first passage, or and it's gives the owners a lot of confidence. It's a great opportunity to train them, and I hope we continue to do that. I know we will, because it's fun for one thing to be on the boats, but it's hugely helpful in the whole process.
Yeah, and we learn a lot about further development of the boat as well. There's systems that we want to change. If there's noisy, bathroom fans or head fans, any little adjustments.
Until you go take a shower in every stall
Yeah,
shower.
you
take
don't
a,
know.
sleep
There's no
in every
way you're ever
stateroom.
going to know.
Yeah.
And there's
Every
noise, or
trip,
it's stuffy, or it's
Yeah. You make your
Every
notes
trip you
and,
learn stuff, and it's just invaluable for feedback to
Yeah.
project management and the design and all that stuff.
and
So
the
it's-
owners get so much out of it. I mean, they basically, once you're done with that first trip, they feel so comfortable. And obviously they can reach out to us anytime after.
and the project managers play more and more of a role in the development of the boat. 'Cause each project manager has his own boat. Justin has this boat. You've got the 96, the 120,
Yep.
other boats you're doing. And each project manager takes a lot of pride and spends a lot of time with their boat, and are hugely responsible for the evolution of the boats. And then all the project managers work together.
Correct.
And
Yeah, we're
sharing
always-
information about what's the best system, and then Mike's back there involved in every one of the boats with the electrical systems and getting feedback from the project manager. So it's
If I do a new design like this 46, to your point, I'll write a spec, but that spec is like an outline, and then I give it to Mike for electrical, I'll go to Trevor, everybody that their expertise might be in, which it's, as a project manager, you've seen every product that's failed, or every new, better product, lighting, everything.
Yeah.
I want to make a point too. The project managers and salespeople, and Mike and Alex can back this up. That never, ever once in a meeting or instruction or a culture or body language do we try to save money on the spec of the boat.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite.
It's never even in the
that's
conversation.
why we don't make any money.
But we got a lot of friends. And I remember years ago when we had some venture capital people look at the company, and they said, yeah, okay, well, the first thing we got to do is cut the price by 10% and cut the cost by 10%, raise the price by 10%. And it's just like, okay, you're out of here. That's just not that's a formula for failure right there. So there may be things. Everybody who owns a Nordhavn might have something that disappoints them, or something breaks, or something that could have been better. But it's never because we chose the lesser part or the less expensive part to build the boat.
We don't have Sigma 6 or anything like GE, but we prune things out as we go, and we weed things out. So when something shows up in a spec that Trevor knows or I know didn't work last time, we have that conversation right away, because because it makes our lives easier.
Right.
Just being kind of selfish with their own time and energy. I don't want to deal with that again because it failed last time or it didn't work the way we wanted it to. So there's an ongoing evolution toward a better overall product, which is really kind of showing up in the 46. I mean, I'm kind of excited for that boat on that level, that everything is probably going to work really, really, really well right out of the chute, which it kind of does with a lot of our new projects. But just watching this one come from the ground up so well, and all the work that's gone into the preparation of it is compared to, because we haven't really built a new boat at one of these factories in a while, and I think we would be impressed with how nice and factory finished it is right from hole number one.
Yeah, and it's nice too working closely with the project manager at the yard. From the beginning with the first design of the vessel, structural, everything is going pretty smoothly with the construction of this thing. All the structure fits inside the boat without having to change too much for once. Usually there's a bit more of a process. Well, that doesn't fit, we have to move this way. It's pretty nice now.
Yeah.
Dan, I just want to say one more thing about cutting costs. And I bought a small motorhome lately, and it comes with a manual. And I've had little issues, and I look in the manual, and that manual is 3 years outdated.
Useless.
It's not even the same model. And, it's so generic. And
But it's 3 languages.
well, I mean, we put an honest effort into our manuals, and you were involved in that quite a bit, aren't you? With
Every boat gets a bespoke manual. I mean, it's absolutely. We have a dedicated guy who does our manuals, and then we, from engineering, contribute project management and answers
But I
questions.
mean, when you look in an owner's manual for a new Nordhavn, 625, the drawings that are in there of the electrical system are absolutely
It's for that.
what's in the boat.
It is a reflection of the very boat.
And
itself.
how many
Yeah, for
times
sure.
have we, in troubleshooting one of the boats, got the owner to go pull the manual out?
Routinely.
We point out to this breaker or this bus bar or this shunt or whatever, and we generally know where it is. and the guy goes to it. And we've been able to, a boat's 500 miles at sea or down off the Mexican coast, and we're able to troubleshoot issues real effectively from our office. And that manual is it's a huge, beautiful. We were talking about the other day how much we spend on each one of those things.
Well, we budget $2,500 per boat for the manual, and additionally, Dan Collins, we photograph each boat. Each boat through construction has photos, and it probably before it even is shipped from the factory, there's 500, 600, 700 photos. But a finished boat, we just snap maybe 1,000 photos.
I think
that budget is. There's already the base manual that's done at much higher expense than that.
Yeah.
And then that amount is the time it takes for Dan and Mike and others to go in and make sure that it's absolutely updated, because it changes. Not every boat is the same.
And
if a customer orders something different in his boat, a different
water
different water. Yeah, I mean that all gets
Captured.
woven into the manual, and that's delivered a nice bound manual, and it's delivered
and
electronically.
digitally. Yeah.
Yeah, and then sorry to take up more time here, but we make an effort to compile this information, knowing we're going to get that phone call. Where's the breaker, or where's this thing? And yeah, it's hard. It's hard for someone who's not really familiar with this stuff to know where to look. But then we have our own record where we can pull our manual, our drawings, and our photos of everything on that boat. Send off an email, and the owner's like, "Oh my God, that's exactly the answer I needed to what I have a problem with right now." So we collect all that information so we can answer those questions quickly.
Yeah, so talking about innovation, on one hand, we're a bit stodgy. Over the years, we've been burned a couple times by the latest, greatest gizmo. How do you balance a proper fear of getting too far out there and getting something that's fragile or not tested, but at the same time having innovation? And so I'm gonna hand this to Mike. Mike, how do you balance those things? Things that won't break, but we don't want to get left behind either.
Yeah, I mean, it's to have an eye out for innovation for the sake of innovation we're kind of there with that. It's like, we don't want to just keep doing the same old thing and not be looking for could things be done better. And as we go to the boat shows, we go to IBEX, we look at what's out there. A lot of times owners will bring things to us and ask us, hey, can we do that? And that's kind of an area where we do learn things. I mean, certainly the lithium, twin engines, all of these kinds of things are kind of in the innovation column. And then the things that come along with that, certainly this thing, and so many, I mean, myself included, want to be able to do and interact with the things we own using a device like a phone or a tablet. And I mean, I can go on here right now and see 30 or 40 Nordhavns in their electrical systems and how they're doing, and start and stop generators and chargers. So there's a lot of built-in monitoring and control and remote stuff that just didn't exist just a few years ago. I mean, once satellite.
So Mike, you're saying you have the boats that you've built on your phone, and you can go on the internet and you can see what they're doing?
Lots of them, yeah. And that's just the electrical stuff. That's not part of their Maritron system or something that they bought from the electronics. As long as they have internet broadcast on their boat, then the things we already provide them with can connect to those. And it's enormous for troubleshooting and watching things. And so that's a pretty obvious innovation. And I don't know, and some of the I think a big part of my job, and Alex, we're engineers and we want to make things that work and perform, but I think even more important than that is we're focused heavily on safety. I mean, most of what we do is to provide something that's not only going to do what it does, but it's going to do it safe, so your family and your friends and your pets and all that stuff, people that bring on these boats, is going to have a good experience and going to be safe while they do it. And so much of the work we do is pointed at that. And a lot of the innovations that we look at is the safety factor that's coming along with those, with the batteries and stuff, is all of these extra ability to monitor and have advanced warning of things that might be going in a bad direction or whatever, and an ability to respond to it quicker just makes a safer boat, and gives us and the owners more. It empowers them to have better control and better awareness. Probably awareness is the better word of what's going on with their system. Because a lot of it is kind of in a box now. It's not just out there where you can see it like it was on the older, simpler boats. So
So
that's a big part of
are
the
these,
innovation.
this talk about these 48 volt electrical systems, is that driven
Yeah.
in part by safety?
For sure, yeah. I mean, 48 volts. There's a big push to go from 24 volts to 48 volts with the bigger electrical systems, because if you raise the voltage up, the current comes down. So if there's less current on your cables, you can use smaller cables. That saves weight, saves money, but it's also a lot less heat. And that's the thing we're afraid of on boats, is heat generated by cables, loose connections, starting fires, and things like that. So when you raise the voltage, the safety factor goes up quite a bit in terms of any sort of fire concern on a boat. And what we're doing now with these big battery banks pushing lots and lots of current to inverters and running air conditioners and things like that, basically off of battery power, you're running a lot of current through a lot of cables. So increasing the voltage drops all that current, in half if you raise the voltage to 48 volts. And
Even more if you go from 12 volts to 48 volts.
for sure, yeah, going from 12 to 24 in itself was a big deal, and now it's 24 to 48. And and that kind of gives you another opportunity to also look at, well, can I put in bigger alternators and get more power off of my engines, which would be the intention of doing that, and again shrinking that dependence on the generator. But I think a lot of owners really like to do what they can to minimize generator runtime, for just to minimize the noise and the exhaust and all that stuff. It's the next 71 that has a lithium system. We're going to try as hard as we can to make that a 48 volt boat, if we can pull all of the other pieces necessary together to do it. It's kind of complicated, but I think within a year or two it'll be pretty normal for us on this size of boat to have a 48 volt system. Yeah.
Eric, I'm going to direct this question to you, and Jim, to you also. There was one of the questions that came in from Dreamers is if it's possible for us to profile a typical Nordhavn buyer that steps forward to buy a boat today. And this particular boat, the owners they're in their 50s, made money in the IT business, and came to the table with a gigantic amount of intelligence and abilities to understand things, but without a boating background. And so their task has been to apply that intelligence to learning the systems and learning to operate the boat. But Eric, what are you seeing? Is it possible to generalize on? Are we seeing younger people with money now?
Yeah, we are. I mean, there's a YouTube channel, 41% or 71%. It's a young couple. They've got a 41. They came out of a larger Riviera, or 60-foot type cruising yacht. And then we see people that are coming into retirement and have done well in business and want to go have a grand adventure. Some with boating experience, some without. So it's hard to pinpoint a buyer in today's market. We're seeing a mix of youthful people and retirement age people that want to go boating with experience and without experience.
But someone without experience, it's sensible for them to step into a big complicated boat.
Oh, sure. I mean, with the support of this company and the training and going and using the boat and everything, it's the success rate is much higher than the failure rate of a couple getting on a boat and going out and successfully cruising the boat. And on the West Coast, the Bahamas, up and down the East Coast, in Australia, we see a lot of people with very little experience getting into it, taking it head on, and being very successful in cruising.
That actually was going back over 40 years. That was the realization that we were building these beautiful Mason sailboats. Dasheng was building them for us from 1978 on, and we were selling them to this, to people that had the desire to go off and go cruising on a sailboat. Most of them had been working all their lives because the boats were new boats and they were fairly expensive. So we were dealing with people that had some money, and they would embrace this lifestyle, get the boat, learn all they could, and the success rate was dismal. It was just more than not, people were intimidated, scared, uncomfortable. Their expectation exceeded what the reality was, and we could see how dismal it was, and kind of came to the conclusion, that maybe a nice heavy, stable powerboat with reliable diesel power and good range and tanks, a boat that could pretty much go to where the sailboats wanted to go, would be a much better bet for these people. And it was a radical success. The majority of people that embraced the powerboat in lieu of the sailboat to go cruising had a great experience. Well, that was before chart plotters and before all these things that created so much safety and then and there were water
Before
makers.
GPS, actually.
Water makers back then, but they weren't as reliable and as good. And it used to be a big deal to have a freezer on a boat. Where you can, but now you have the comforts of home, even in their smallest boat.
Actually, I'm looking behind the camera there to a big wine cooler. Stocked with wine and yes, air conditioning, washer dryers,
I think
Starlink.
the most
Starlink's a big game changer for
Yeah.
people, is they can actually be on the boat full time and work from it and not be disconnected, as to where 5 years ago that was
The
not
most
available.
important thing too really is just do people have common sense? Are they cautious? They're not reckless? Because you get all the information you need. All of your weather information is there. You've got beautiful chart plotters. I mean, it's anybody can do it. Being mechanically inclined is really helpful, but even that's less important now with the support that we can provide.
Well, that's actually one of the questions here. So the question posed was, so this is a complicated beast, this boat, and it has easy range down to Papeete, let's say. So you roll in there, and your air conditioning has got a fault on the screen. What do you do?
Yeah, and step one, you call the salesperson or project manager.
Yeah.
And now with FaceTime and Starlink,
Yeah,
all
it's so
that,
crazy.
it's so
Starlink,
easy.
you got your
You're just-
phone and you're showing, and someone on the other end of the phone can
And
help
half
you
the
and
time
guide
it's a setting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we can record the exact fault, take a little short video,
Yeah.
WhatsApp it to whoever the person is to help. That goes to the company that developed the system if we can't figure it out. And then it just gets sorted out quickly.
There's always a
Part needs to
solution
come, it's
with that.
FedEx.
But
Yeah.
I think the tone of the question is, do you need to be MacGyver to run one of these
No
boats?
way.
No.
I think if you're,
No.
generally speaking, if you're smart enough to be successful enough to afford the boat, you certainly should be able to figure out the boat.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. We've seen people go from zero experience, don't even know how to dock the boat, don't understand any aspect of it. 3 years later, they're writing a book about how to go cruising on a boat. I mean, that's how, they
As long
become
as the
experts.
passion is there.
Yeah, it's you can learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you love it, then you're going to learn it. You're going to read the manuals. You're going to play with the screens. You're going to understand the air conditioning panel and the inverters and the interplay of the batteries.
People are passionate. I'm always amazed at how many people come to us. We've never heard about them. They're not in our database, and they know, from the standpoint of dimensions and standard equipment, they know more about the boats than we do, and we have to get a team together to to answer their questions. So there's a huge amount of information, and probably we should talk a little bit about our owners group, how
Yeah.
incredibly powerful that is for people. In fact, you mentioned that 71%. I saw an interview with them where what's his name? Nathan was talking about the support that he gets. I mean, you have a question about some aspect of your boat, or maybe you have a problem, or even ask for a suggestion on a routing for some trip. And we've got 700 or 800 people that are on that owners group that are, some of them have so much expertise and qualifications. They've run the boats thousands of miles, and I've heard it over and over again that owners group is one of the most powerful aspects
It's
of
hugely powerful.
owning a
It's
Nord-
actually not our group. I mean, it's an independent group that is so busy. I get all their emails, and it would range from 10 to 20, 30, 40 posts a day of somebody will actually, for example, I just saw one, it was either this morning or yesterday. Yeah, what setting should I have on my AP, whatever, autopilot on a 55?
Yeah.
And boom, came back, your counter rudder is off, by 10 points, and answered.
It's almost they have a competition of who can provide the best answer.
There's some
The
smart,
fastest. Yeah.
smart
That's the
dudes.
best answer. Yeah.
Yeah, some very smart people.
Well, you think about some of the people that own Nordhavn, some of the smartest people in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got I mean,
Yeah, we can't name some of the names, they're
yeah,
so big.
guys that are incredibly smart guys.
Yeah. You'll hear from Nordhavn owners, well, hear from them, you see it all the time. I mean, if you're anchored in some bay, name it. I mean, it can be the Marquesas or someplace up in Alaska, and the second Nordhavn comes in there, I mean, you got a party going just with two, and then a third one comes in, and they're always getting together. We get photos all the time. We get wonderful letters. So it's when you buy a Nordhavn, you join a family that is a lot of fun and very supportive.
I think if you put yourself in their shoes, if you were in their position, wouldn't it be comforting to be able to call somebody that's just so knowledgeable, and you know how stressful it can be when you break down somewhere? That's a big deal.
That's probably it too. It's just pure, straight up empathy. It's like, man, yeah, we want to help you out of that as much as we can. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, we drop everything. That's call comes in with a problem.
It's a huge responsibility, and we've thought about it over the years that you're building a boat for people, and you're suggesting that they can go off and travel long distances with it. They're out there on their own. I mean, it's nothing to take lightly.
No.
So here's a question that'll make us all laugh. Will Nordhavn ever build spec boats that are set out on a lot available for sale, so people don't have to wait for their new boat? And no, the answer is no.
Maybe paddle boards or something.
We
No,
do
what if we
start
could?
boats. I mean, we do that, but never
Yeah.
intentionally build.
And I'm making light of the question, and it does bring up the fact that people do typically have to wait for a new build, and that can be a great pleasure for some who really enjoy the build process, the creative part of it, or it can be aggravating for some just because they want it now and don't want to wait. But like Jim said, we
are doing that with the new 46. We're
Yeah.
building some boats. We don't want to sell them. We want to get them finished and
actually, Jim, why don't we? I mean, we've alluded to this 46 a couple times here. Why don't you take that from the beginning and tell the folks what we got going there?
well, it's a new 46, and it's incorporating all the modern aspects of the new boats we're doing. It is a twin engine boat. We did run the hull through computational fluid dynamics. We actually tried to put a bulb on it, but we came to the conclusion it just wasn't going to benefit the boat. You did a lot of work on that.
Yeah, it's just the thing of the boat's moving around too much because it's a smaller boat, so the bulb stops working like it should when it's moving up and down too much. But we did run the whole rest of the hull and refine that a little bit. And there's not a whole lot that can be done after a certain point, because that project comes on the back of the 41, 51, 71, where we've already done all the work on the hull, so we already know roughly what works. But we were able to reduce the resistance down a couple percent, which will actually save a lot of money running the boat over its lifetime.
You could take that a lot further, but it's at
yeah.
the expense of space
Yeah.
and load carrying capability. There's a certain line you got to say, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, so going back to the compromises, if you want to keep that going, eventually you'll end up with a canoe or something.
Exactly.
Which now you've got a horrible cruising yacht. So really, it's just balancing all the forces, coming up with the best possible solution that we think will work the best.
It's kind of a fun project because it really is going back to our absolute roots. I mean, the 46. Saiwan Shu is building the boat. He built our original 46. We've got video of Dan and Jeff and us standing at the test pool, and in that factory we were all kids with Sai, who was
1988.
yeah, and launching that boat, and then that the success of that boat, and it was putting Nordhavn on the map. So we're kind of going back and trying to design a boat that will be the ultimate in terms of range and capability, interior volume. Jeff's got a really cool layout for it, some contemporary little things he's put in it to make it kind of exciting and fun. And we're kind of keeping it a little bit quiet. We're not. We don't want to put a price tag on it yet because we're going through this process of getting the best of everything, and it's going to be a very well-equipped boat in its standard configuration. I think we'll know fairly quickly what that number is going to be. but it's an exciting project.
Yeah, so it's being built at the South Coast Taiwan plant.
Taiwan, yep.
Same place where the 625 is built.
Yep.
And by, like Jim said, Saiwan Shu, the same builder, South Coast Marine, that we've been with since the 80s, and the builder of the very first Nordhavn.
He actually has been promoting that boat. I mean, he's one of the big reasons we did it, because he wanted to do it. He wanted
Just
to,
for nostalgic reasons.
Yeah, he just wanted to show the world what Saiwan can still do, and
Yeah.
that yard builds, the 120, Trevor's 96 100-footers,
And the 80.
He's just spectacular, and to have that level of quality in that little 46, it's gonna blow people away.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're still with us here. We're getting, I think we're an hour or so into this. I don't know what your attention span will be. We're basically reading from questions that were, as I said earlier, were submitted by Dreamers. Thank you, Dreamers. One of them, I kind of laughed, but it's probably a little bit interesting. I'll just read it. Dan, Jim, Jeff, you guys are old! Exclamation point. I don't know why the exclamation point was necessary, but Nordhavn has such a powerful brand and reputation. What's the plan to maintain the company culture once the founders have sailed into the sunset? Wow, that's a big
Does that
question.
mean really sailing or just dying?
I think it's losing our marbles, basically. But we still all have our marbles. We're all still healthy. It's been 50 years at this point. We're probably beyond the point of selling the company or making big bucks. Partly because nobody's ever really wanted to buy the company. That's a whole other story. But we're into these golden years now, where the accomplishment of the boats, the reputation, the friends, the relationships with our factories around the world is really more important than making a bunch of money. And what is the succession plan? Well, we don't really have one. On the other hand, we have a beautiful succession plan because we've got this group of the next generation people, and we have them right here: Eric and Trevor and Alex, Mike, and
Eric's brother, my other son James.
Yeah, James and others up in the office. We mainly sort of assembled 71 people because this started as a video for the 71. So we've got a beautiful group of next generation people that are frankly doing the heavy lifting these days. The old guys, we're still here. Like I said, we still got our marbles, and so we'll just drift along. But there is no worry for anyone watching as to whether this culture will exist for another 20 years or so.
I think you should point out Jeff's got a few more years to go than.
Well, Jeff's younger.
Despite his appearance, not much.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I probably put myself number one. I'm 77 years old, so.
Well, I don't think any of us are going anywhere for good. I mean, as long as we can stroll into the office.
Yes.
My kids both work there. Your kids work there. Your kids work there.
Yeah.
So I would say that if you have a Nordhavn and you have a problem or a question, you can pick up the phone and you're going to talk to the smartest guy you've ever talked to that knows every inch of that boat. I mean, Trevor, on these larger boats, you know every circuit breaker on that boat.
Yeah,
I've seen you walk people through, captains through some anomaly that they're dealing with, and so we really need to bring everybody here. I'm hoping Justin, who's the project manager for this boat, will show up.
Yeah, he had a doctor's appointment. I think he's going to come in.
The expertise that we have, guys that have been at it in their entire careers, 30 plus years, and are now in the most productive period of their lives, from their late 40s into their 50s. We've got this team.
So the point is that they have 20 years ahead of them yet. So we essentially already have a succession plan. It's actually already happened. The heavy lifting, the smart guys are these 50-year-old, 40 to early 50s.
You made a little lower.
Yeah. An aside to that, it's interesting because, like Jim said, we've been together 50 years, and when we started, we were nobodies and little guys in Dana Point. Where's Dana Point? And there was all the East Coast yacht builders and the Costa Mesa guys also, and we've basically outlasted them now. I mean, I think we've outlasted everybody, and those companies that have sold. I mean, there's that whole list of companies that, I don't know, some guy fell off the turnip truck and paid millions, for a boat company, and usually when those sort of investor types come in and buy a boat company, it's usually gone within 5 years. And at our ages now, with the pride that we take in the company, we've just never let that happen. So that means we just keep going with this next.
There is a competitor of ours that over the years has one of their taglines or thing they talk about is design integrity, and that company's gone through multiple owners, and they use outside engineering and designers. Jeff designed the first 46, and even before that, designing some of the Mason sailboats. But that first 46 was done with battens and weights and little cardboard cutouts, and you're trying to figure out the stability. And he has what we learned on that boat. We took it across the Atlantic, we took it across the Pacific, we went everywhere with that boat.
Went around the world.
And
twice.
We did it with our 40. We went, Jeff and we went around the world with that boat. Set a record that still stands today. But every aspect of a new Nordhavn is based upon all of that experience. The same people, even the same yards working on the boats. Between Daxing that builds this boat, the South Coast, and our relationship with Daxing goes back to the late 70s. So it's, to me, there's no other company that has this design integrity to a greater degree than what PAE has with the team that we have.
And we made it through all the thick and thin too. I mean, there's been recessions, wars, oil crises, currency crises, the Great Recession, COVID, and all those things stress tested the company.
I think something you said earlier. We haven't gotten rich. We've made a good living off of this business
and a good lifestyle.
And a good lifestyle. But if you come into the boat business and you're demanding, 40% margins, return on investment, and board of directors, and it's never going to work. It will never work. The only guys that can really make it are the ones that dedicate themselves to it, can operate from year to year on the, get through the valleys, the low times, and the expectation of a return is, it's not high, but lifestyle.
What's that old joke? How to walk away with $1 million in the boat business?
Start off with $2 million, get out quick.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up here now.
Wait, I'm not through talking.
Anybody have anything more to say? No, it's really been fun. We really haven't done this format like this before. I hope we'll do it again. You never know what people are going to say or what's going to come out.
We have a whole nother great round of people we could bring into it.
Yeah, we could duplicate and fill this table with another fine group of people. So hope everybody's still awake. We haven't lost you, and you're still paying attention. But thanks for watching. And this will go on YouTube. And if you want to make comments on it, don't make the rude comments. The last video I did, they raked me over the coals. But any comments, just put on there, questions that you might have. And then we didn't really walk through the boat. We didn't need to. You can watch that other video that I did last fall to get more engine room and staterooms and so forth. So hope you've enjoyed this. If you have enjoyed it, let us know one way or another with comments, and we'll do it again. Probably do it better next time. This was a first to do it this way. But anyway, thanks for watching, and appreciate it.